Let's make sure so this now needs to be set to. Plug that out, plug it back in. It's working.
The lights are on.
Yeah. Okay, meeting L, videos on the L. All right, I think we're good.
I don't think the videos on.
Thank
you.
Okay, thanks all for your patience. Good morning, it's 9:05 a.m. today on the 12th of September 2025, and I will call to order this meeting of the Grand County Budget Advisory Board. Those present here are board members Throgmorton, Martinez, Winfield, Hedin, Hatwell, Lindsay, Wojtek, and board member Kaufman is present online. Also present here is Jenny Beth Jones from the clerk auditor's office taking minutes, and various representatives from the sheriff's office and related departments. We'll move right along here to action items. So we have approval of budget advisory board minutes from last week. That's September 5th, 2025. Does anyone have any comments in regards to those minutes related to sort of the record, that future consideration section, and how formal comments are being presented here? Certainly the way they're presented can be adjusted, but is there more content that's desired, or is there any comment on that in particular? I'd be curious if there's any feedback.
I've got a little bit in the one paragraph. It says Winfield suggested getting weekly or quarterly reports. I believe that was monthly or quarterly.
Okay.
I wouldn't stretch the clerk auditor's office to do that weekly, but I do have that comment. And then also there was plans to have some sort of a projection possibly, and let's see, a draft ready for this meeting, and just wondering where we are with that.
Yeah, so it didn't end up on the agenda. We are working on it. Perhaps I'll raise those items at future considerations and just give the board an update on those items. Okay, great.
Yep.
So there's one suggested revision to the minutes that I believe could be included in this approval, which is the change from Commissioner Winfield's request from weekly, as it's currently stated, to monthly or quarterly reports. And I'll give an update on that as well.
Yeah.
And so I would entertain the motion to approve the minutes as drafted with that revision included.
So made.
And do I have a second? All right, we have a motion by Winfield, second by Martinez. Any other discussion? All right, all those voting in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
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 Vote passes unanimously. Thank you all. So we'll jump right into the budget presentations and discussion. So we have, as I had mentioned in the roll call, we have all the departments and budgets that are sort of under the umbrella of the Grand County Sheriff's Office. We have Sheriff Jameson Wiggins here. And I'll let you lead in terms of what budget I should pull up first.
I think we should do dispatch, then emergency management,
Okay.
then the jail, and then the patrol sites. Those are gonna be the longest.
Okay.
So we can get these guys out of here.
So one thing to note, I'm pulling up the dispatch budget here. One thing to note is that there is a fund 17, that's titled 911 Emergency Funds. And that's a separate fund from the general fund, which is what we're focusing on right now with this department budget. And if I'm not perhaps Dispatch Supervisor Swenson can give us just a very brief overview of that funding source, and just so there's a section of the budget of the dispatch that is funded entirely via a specific revenue that's all administered in a different fund. And basically what we're looking at today is the general fund contribution for supporting dispatch that lies outside of that 911 tax revenue. I've got the dispatch budget up here. It's pretty quick. But Jenny, you're free to share any detail you'd like about this.
It's self-explanatory.
Let's see, it looks like there's overtime being proposed in this current draft budget, and yeah.
Yes, we had some overtime this year due to lack of staffing. So just to be on the safe side, that's kind of put that in there for next year.
If I may make a comment. So it used to be that, so we created this, I believe, last year. Dispatch used to be tied to the jail's budget. So it's easier to track if they have their own budget. So we discussed that last year. Salaries and overtime all came out of my salaries and overtime. And I think what had happened was, it just wasn't, it was a zero balance. We just forgot to budget for overtime in that account. So that's why it shows a negative 22,000, because it's just zero. So we're just adding that overtime balance to, so they have money in the overtime. So it's not a negative balance this year. So.
And it almost looks as though, that's, we would be building that into the budget contingent on there being a continuation of vacancies of staff in that department. Is that would you say that that's accurate? Because perhaps if you were fully staffed at that 519 number, perhaps there would be less of a need for overtime. Correct me if I'm wrong.
There would be less of a need for overtime.
Yeah.
There would probably still be some because people get sick and have to give coverages or on vacation and stuff, so
Right.
there would be some.
And events.
But yeah, the reason why it's 22,000 is because like Jenny stated, that we were short staffed, so we would, and people would go sick or whatever, and so they had to pay much. So.
Yeah. I'm almost wondering if in terms of, and sorry I don't mean to be dominating the conversation. I don't know. I'm wondering in terms of budgeting for 2026 and sort of budgeting for sort of our ideal actual costs. Perhaps budgeting as though we're fully staffed and potentially needing, a much smaller amount of overtime in order to keep our projected general fund expenses as low as possible. I would suggest either budgeting, you don't want to budget lower on salaries because that would indicate you're reducing staff. That's not what you're indicating right now. But I would almost say it'd be best to budget for full salary and budget a lot less overtime. And then we amend up in the like, as we will this year, in the event that just has to happen because you're understaffed. See where I'm getting at there?
Sure.
Yep, please.
And then would it be possible to find out how many staff we had in 2020, or how many staff you're planning for in 2026, how many staff you had in 2025, and how many staff were in 2024?
Yeah, we'll run some numbers. I would like to have the one position back that we haven't filled for next year.
Yeah.
But we've been sitting between 6 and 8 dispatchers this year.
Between 6 and 8 in 2026? Or in 2025 was between 6 and 8? And then do you happen to know around where you were at in 2024?
2024, we had the 9, we
had
had
9?
between 7 and 9.
Okay, thank you.
So would it be okay if I reduce this overtime budget to say 5,000 as Shan mentioned, perhaps for in cases of illness or things of that nature, there could be some inevitable overtime costs.
Absolutely.
Okay, and of course we would, that's an unavoidable cost if it were to come up that we would have to amend up to. Thank you. Any other questions regarding the dispatch budget as it's presented, this personnel costs associated with dispatch funded out of the general fund?
I'd just make a comment that we chose to not fill one of the dispatcher positions, and it's in here is that for 2026, 519,000. It should probably include that other dispatcher position unless the commission votes to have it. I think it should still be included in there.
Okay, as it is currently proposed, correct?
Yeah, because it doesn't show that other dispatcher position in there.
Okay,
And so that would be how many? You're looking for 8 then, or 9? What is the 9 is what we're looking for?
And then
There the sheriff, as you mentioned, we chose not to fill that
So
position.
you have it in it, but you would prefer not.
Yeah, he's just asking the budget like it was full staffed, and then unless the commission decides to cut that position altogether, because we just chose not to fill it, not to cut it altogether, as far as I'm understanding. Right?
Yeah,
And so like you see to have too long.
yeah, I'm just trying to get a full understanding of like where we're at, so I can.
Yeah.
If it does have to come to that, I understand where
Yeah.
we're making cuts and which services we're pulling back on.
I don't see how we can budget without some projections here. I mean, I have no problem putting it in like your full staff. But I don't understand how we can be budgeting without a projection of what's happening next year. We can ask you to cut your budget by 6%, but we don't know that it's 6%. We don't know if the commission does need to cut staff. If that's who does it, or the administrator, we don't know. I mean, we can move numbers all over the board in these budgets. We can reduce overtime, we can to come up with a proposed 6% or whatever number we're looking for, but where are we gonna get some projections is what I'm looking for, to have an idea of what's going on with the landscape. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, Gabe,
No,
that's not my intention,
I think
but
it's.
I feel like we're throwing darts at the wall and there's not even a board up there.
Yeah, I think it's really valid. And I'll just speak to it right now. So I've been doing my best to sort of create a draft projected budget for 2026 based on my knowledge of things, based on perhaps assumptions that I would make, you know, that certainly I know aren't official, but I'm just trying to get a general sense. Okay, we've implemented this 5% cut across departments. It could be that some of these contributions that we've historically made or we have only made this year won't be showing up on the 2026 budget. Chris Kaufman has worked up this week some property tax collection projections, and then our other sales and use tax revenue projections. So I have populated a document. The problem is that, like, you know, as these budgets are moving and as new things come up, it tends to move a lot. And I'm just not feeling like it's firm enough. But what I will tell you is that I don't have something ready to present today. I do expect to have something ready to present next week. But I will say, and I guess another question is there will be the matter of the appetite of the commission to a budget to some degree in the red based on our historical underspend. But as I see it right now, with my guess at the budget, my current guess at the budget has us for 2026, 800,000 under, or I'm sorry, 800,000 over. And so in the past, you know, we've called it good there. You know, I'm not making that assumption. You know, perhaps this commission would prefer to be more conservative in that respect and budget only 500 over or 0 over. But that's what I'm currently seeing as far as like the bottom line of a budget with my assumptions inputted, that we're about 800,000 in the red from like my guess draft budget, if that helps.
Yeah.
So it's within spitting distance, I would say.
Can I make a comment for the record? Yep, can next year in Q2, can we have those projections set? And then that be the first order of business of the Budget Advisory Board next year, so that departments have a chance to see what those revenues are looking at as they're preparing their budgets?
We can do our best. I think that's reasonable. You know, I think it's also reasonable, like that there is an element of, you know, it's not. I think I would want to, I want to reach out to some other resources and folks that are well-versed in these processes and seeing what the approach is for preparing an early projection and how to best use that to inform a budgeting process, because I'm sure that there are best practices out there that we can utilize. Because immediately what springs up to my mind is there's just a lot of stuff that's moving even in Q2. And you know, we're talking plus or minus $1 million. Which makes a big difference when you're talking about putting together a budget. though I do think the sentiment makes a lot of sense. I don't disagree at all. So, yeah,
I think that it puts the pressure then on the sheriff.
Yeah.
Rather than on the commissioner to decide about that position. That shouldn't be pressured on the commission to make that decision. They should have a projection and know that this year your revenue is going to be up or down, and then they can work within that. But right now, as Shan stated, the commission hasn't decided. Well, I don't think that we should have to decide. I think that the departments should see that there's a projection coming up and they make those decisions within the departments.
okay,
I mean, if we don't give them a projection, then I agree that it's the responsibility of the commission. We're gonna have to come through and we're gonna have to slash, or we're gonna say, hey, we've got some money, maybe we should add somebody in this department or bring somebody back, but a department should be able to make those decisions if they had some projections rather than roll that off on the commission.
and I do think that the commission's direction to departments to present a 5% reduction, I think served, the intention that you're talking. But perhaps it could be done even a little bit more pointedly or comprehensively.
I think it could have been refined quite a bit more. I think that, that initial projection, because that happened in Q2, right? When we made that statement that, hey, we're gonna have to come out with that 5% cut, but we don't know how the funding relates to it. I mean, here we're looking at this budget right here, and there's different funding sources, yet we're only talking about this one fund. So we're not really getting a full picture of what we're looking at for these departments. And to be able to have that full picture, I think earlier when these departments are making these decisions, right? They'll be able to move the funds around how they see fit. Even if it's just a rough like spitball guess, right? I mean, even if it's just like this 5%, right? But 5% for this department might be huge as compared to 5% for this department, which might only need to be 3% because the funding sources are different, if that makes any sense.
So it's revenue based versus expense based.
Correct. You're starting off with a revenue based system, right? And then when it comes to this board, we're looking at the expense based. That piece of the puzzles, the departments basically had the choice to make those decisions themselves before they brought it to this board.
Dispatch is just the lucky team that got to bring this strategy. You all.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to drag the point out anymore. I guess,
Thanks, yeah.
it just seemed like we looked at Q2 and we saw that things were down a little bit. And so a decision was made to give direction because it looks like revenue might be 5% down next year. So let's tell departments to present 5% down. It seems like we did do that. I don't want to drag around the point.
We did,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
The other thing that we need to put in here is we need a new line item from contributions from other agencies. And I mean, I think the city of Moab owes us $500,000. They still haven't paid us. So that makes a big difference when you have different agencies that are no longer deciding to pay us for whatever reason. So now I'm having to not fill positions because I'm not being paid by other agencies.
Yep.
So I think if we had a line item in there where it shows, hey, the city of Moab paid us, the fire department paid us, and it showed money that was coming in, then we can make determinations on whether we really do need to not fill these positions or not.
Jameson, do you mind just giving us a brief overview of all the different agencies that pay you in dispatch, if you don't mind, or should?
Should,
Sorry, yes.
city of Moab, the fire department, EMS. The Bureau of Land Management, they pay us a very small percentage.
Moab Valley Fire.
Fire department hasn't paid us. EMS hasn't paid us, and the city of Moab hasn't paid us for like 3 years.
And is the NPS listed on that? Because I know that
They were, but then they
they-
jumped off. They're gonna go do their own thing now.
they're not gonna use dispatch anymore. Okay.
There's Castle Valley would be like next to nothing, but technically they have their own fire department, so. Yeah.
Okay.
Two small agencies here, but those were the big ones in Jameson's.
Okay.
But I just think if we had that specific line item that showed if they ever do in fact pay us, we should account for that revenue that's coming in to offset some of these other Why not?
And I agree. And I look forward to, improving our collaboration and preparing the budget, and sort of adding more detail, especially as it relates to revenue associated specifically with the sheriff's office. All right, let's see, we're gonna go to emergency management. Let's see, I'm always forgetting how to go on full screen, just get as big as possible. We have Caitlin Finley here to present the emergency management budget. As currently proposed, $169,632, which is proposed to be 97% of the 2025 request. And we'll go from the top there, and I'll try to scroll down based on the detail that you want to provide. Emergency Manager Finley.
Yeah, I put as much detail as I could in the comments in the narrative. I'm happy to try to answer any questions that you all have.
It looks like there's an increase here associated with the subscriptions and memberships.
Yeah, that's correct. I am not sure how the $2,000 budget was arrived at. That was before I started, but I've broken out the subscriptions that I'm aware of.
Okay.
The main one is we have 3 variable message signboards. They're $950 a year, so that right there exceeds that $2,000.
And are we not, that subscription isn't active this year, do you know, or is that?
It is active.
Are we voting it in a different place, do you think? Is there maybe a miscode there?
So I don't think we've been billed for it yet, is my understanding.
Okay. That explains it.
But those are the signboards. They're actually, like, one is at the bottom of Sand Flats right now. The roads department is borrowing it. We can pull them out into areas that maybe are flooding. So it's a public safety benefit there. And then I placed 2 precipitation monitors up in Sand Flats. That was an area where we identified there's high rates of rainfall. We're more likely to experience flooding in town. So it closed a pretty significant information gap for us. The data plan for each of those is $200 a year. So
Okay.
That's the increase.
Thank you for finding accurate information about the actual cost associated with those things. We like that.
The only question I have is that you show a 50% overtime reduction from 2025, but the numbers are identical. 8,000 opening budget, 2025, 8,000, 2026.
Yeah, so that is, I had reduced my overtime and then I had to add in on-call. So my position is a 24/7 on-call position. So I get 1 hour of on-call for each weekend day that I'm in town and available. So that can be broken out and do a separate line item in the future, but talking to Gabe, he said basically just add it into overtime and then explain it.
Thank you.
Yep.
And we will see a new line in there that's called on-call pay. Added in there, no, the sum of those 2 lines will be 8,000.
I have just a question for my own, just my own education, the utilities line, does that pay for the communications tower up on, what is, that's a huge number, so I have no idea.
Right, and this is where I might need
Is that-
some help
okay.
from collective on that.
For the EOC
Okay,
utilities.
Yeah.
And then it does help to subsidize the towers.
okay, that was my assumption, but okay, thank you. I appreciate
And
that.
some internet costs there as well.
Okay,
And helps to subsidize the towers. What is that? Just so I can add in the budget description. It's like,
Radio.
The radio towers,
is it like the lease?
the generators, the propane that needs to be delivered.
yeah, that was my assumption, but I just was right on education, thank you.
Thank you.
And then Kate, you're the only one in that department. right?
That's correct, yeah, that's part of the reason for the on-call.
Yeah, I just wanted to double check.
Just me. I also had a seed I wanted to plant for future consideration, if that's allowable.
Please.
I think the county needs to look at establishing a restricted account specifically for disaster recovery. The reason why I'm saying that, I was at an emergency management summit for the state earlier this week, and this was a point of discussion that came up. So we know there are a lot of changes happening federally. One of the changes in emergency management is pushing responsibility for recovery and survivability down to states and locality. One of the big changes that we've seen so far is that the threshold to be able to declare a disaster has quadrupled more or less from last year to this year. What I mean by that is you have to reach a certain dollar amount in damages in order to be able to declare. It's important to know that being able to declare unlocks state and federal resources, right? So if you don't hit that threshold to be able to declare, you are primarily responsible for your disaster. The state has established an account to offset costs for localities that experience a disaster that doesn't meet the threshold. However, because those thresholds have tripled, what we could expect to see moving forward is more disasters happening that aren't meeting the threshold and therefore more pressure on that state fund. If we had a local fund, even if we established the account this year, maybe leave it unfunded and then moving forward when we have a different budget, continue to funnel money into it. We're demonstrating that we can take more responsibility for our own disasters. And then if the state implements a process on kind of choosing how people can access that restricted fund, we have something to say, hey, we've got this fund locally, we've been putting money into it, we're planning, we've drawn from it. Please, can we have some more resources?
Do you have any baseline numbers of what that threshold was and what it is
I
now?
can tell you for the state, yeah.
Yeah.
So last year for the state, it was 6 million. This year it's north of 28 million.
Was there 28 million in damage in recent disasters here in Grand County?
So
Yeah.
that would be for the state to be able to declare. I
Got
think
it,
the way to figure it out, and this is based on my recollection from the meeting, it's the first time that I've heard the numbers, is that it went from like $1.83 a person to like upwards of $8. So if you kind of take that based on population, you can see how those thresholds are changing.
Do you have any numbers from other counties, like what they're putting aside or have, or anyways? Or do you have,
I
you
can
said we could
ask-
leave it empty, or we could put a little bit in it.
Yeah, so I can ask around our region.
Okay,
The state account has existed for a while. The concept of pushing it down to the counties is a relatively new discussion from what I understand. But I can get more information if that's helpful.
yeah, it might be helpful.
And maybe, you know, if there's a need, we could do a workshop on it. I could put together a presentation, but I did want to plant the seed while I had the opportunity.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a metric to establish what it would be wise to have in a fund such as that.
Yeah.
You know, perhaps taking the value of more flood prone properties and a percentage of that, I don't, you know, something like that.
Well, I would point out that rightfully so, we've been focusing on floods, but I would like to also shift the focus in the county to a more all hazards approach. You could have a technological disaster, you could have a man-made disaster. These are things that we need to start preparing for.
Who's in charge of administering those funds at the state?
It is, take a picture of the slide.
Perfect. Yeah, I know.
It varies by dollar amount is the short answer. I think up to 3 million, the decision can be made by the Division of Emergency Management Director. Up to 10 million, it's the governor, and then if it exceeds 10 million, then it's the governor plus. Let me get the wording right. Governor and Executive Appropriation Subcommittee approval. And they noted that that's cumulative for the state. So if you were to have like an early disaster that was really big and pulled 10 million, then any other disaster that year for the state would require governor and executive appropriation subcommittee.
And then who would be running that increase on that number? Would that be certain representatives or certain senators that are bringing this to the state?
That appropriation,
Yeah.
what you mentioned.
I can find out.
Yeah, that'd be great, thanks.
This is just a random thought, Gabe, but we have a line item for stormwater, don't we?
There's a fund, stormwater mitigation
And we
fund.
put like 400 grand a year in it.
We had been.
Something.
I
So
want to say that
anyways, it's just a thought of, maybe we just change the terminology. I mean, maybe that's an extreme idea, and or say if we're putting that much into stormwater, we pull a piece of that out for overall emergency management, or we just rename it.
And reduce storm mitigation work?
Well,
I mean, that's what you're suggesting.
well, I mean, our storm mitigation work relates to emergency. I mean, I just think that there's there's just an overlap here.
I
so-
think we have a lot of citizens that think we're not doing anywhere near enough for
Well,
storm
and I
mitigation.
think
so-
it was Chris Barrett who started that fund. I can't remember 5 years ago or 6 years, wasn't that long ago. And so it's just a thought. I agree. I don't think we're doing enough, but I think we're also, have a limited budget. I think we're doing what we can, parlaying that money. You did a good job with that NRCS grant, doing what we can to parlay that.
Do we know what the budget minus actuals are in that account?
I wanna say there's 1.8 million in the fund balance, as I remember.
Just a thought.
I think there's an RFP out also for that crossing of the 191 out there from Jackson Street also, so.
Yeah.
That number's, I don't know what that's gonna come in at, but it might totally deplete that and need additional as well.
And it could be, yeah, we'll have to have some discussion with the roads department too and see what revenues that they collect that, are specific to their fund might be qualifying for that type of work and what appetite they have to, sort of spread that around. Any other comments or questions regarding the emergency management services budgets? I'm not seeing any huge other changes. Kate, it looks like the hazmat expense, are we working that, or that's just not that's not a grant that we're gonna be utilizing in 2026?
Correct, yeah, that was a grant that was written previously to buy some multi-gas meters. So that's done, it's been.
Got it. And thanks for providing all the detail here for everyone's sake.
Very good.
All right, seeing no other questions or comments regarding this budget, we'll go on to the next. Should we start with SO or jail or?
Jail.
Okay, just a second.
Thank you. Thank you.
Get ready.
Well, I'm used to it, so.
Heck, you're part of it.
Okay, we have Jail Commander Shan Hackwell here to present the budget for the Grand County Jail.
I'll just give a brief overviews on everything, unless you guys want to just go through it and ask questions, but I usually just give brief overviews.
Great.
Salaries, there was an increase from last year, and that's because, as noted in there, commonly, or it used to be the drug court tracker and / bailiff court security Kurt Rivers position was paid out of the SO salary, so it just made more sense to have, because I supervise that position. So we just moved it over to our budget, and that's why you have that increase in there. Now, overtime I dropped by $10,000. We've, with the sheriff, and the chief deputy, we came up with the schedule to hopefully alleviate a lot of the overtime for trainings and stuff like that comes out. By including double coverage days, hopefully it works out, so we reduced that number by $10,000. Liquor, I don't ever budget for that. So I've never added numbers in there, but for whatever reason. Numbers go in there. The on-call I reduced by 15,000. Again, we're trying to reduce that. Hopefully for the administration staff. we've been working with the sheriff in regards to cutting those numbers, so we've reduced that quite a bit. 20,000 I came up with was I basically took our highest paid line staff, just one of them, and then basically times their wage by 364. Of full year salary, and what that would be for that, not full year salary, full year of 1 hour a day. That way hopefully it would cover if there's any on call or call out for each individual, so we're not gonna have on call every day. Again, benefits increased due to the court security position. Or reduce the travel and transports by 5,000, that's just based on projections. We had planned for other trainings and stuff earlier this year. We didn't go due to budget cuts in the whole year
And then
and other stuff that kind of come up, so I'm trying to reduce that number, and I've also, because I've cut some trainings and stuff for that, we're trying to do more in-house trainings. For next year. Office expenses. We've been messing around with that number. We reduced it. If you look in 2023, it was $10,000. 6 and 24. And then we reduced it down to 3 because it's just based off the 24 act or 3,500 based off the 24 actuals. We're already probably, we're projected to go over that 3,500, so I'm bouncing it back up to the 4,500. What's going on, and I think I brought this up in the last meeting, it's the ink for certain printers. And so it's very expensive, and booking, as you know, we print a lot of booking sheets to create those files.
Just a question,
Go ahead.
just real quick, just one quick question on that. Are you looking locally for those printing products?
So no, actually, we've been trying to save money, so we've been trying to order. We started an account on Amazon, so our administrative assistant, Amy, has been really great about trying to cut costs. That's why we've been able to drop from that 10,000 down, is because Amy's been working really hard on trying to find cuts here and there. We started a lease with, well, it's a local it's our copy machine. That cut us a lot of costs. So I'm looking at probably adding another copier machine because the ink seems a lot cheaper for that, for whatever reason. But the printer that we have, the ink costs a lot. I think it's pretty close to the same as what they brought up in the ComEd
Sure.
discussion last week. I think it's the inks, what kind of gets us in regards to that. So we're trying to mess around with that number. Obviously, we've had a lot over the years. We're down to 4,500. That's what I'm asking now. Like I said, it used to be 10,000. So
I think the reason Brian brought that up, and I'll just enlarge on a little bit, is that we're trying to utilize local, and we're allotting the fact, I don't remember, wasn't there an amount that if you buy local, if it's within 10% or something that
Yeah, there's a local
that
person.
we encourage that, so if it's close enough.
So I'm fine with looking at
Yeah.
local stuff. It's just, we're trying to also
Actually-
cut budgets.
No, I understand that, and I was actually just gonna look to see if there's maybe a more of a countywide policy or a countywide purchase that we could make for local ink, because it's the second time I've heard that.
Right.
And I wanna see maybe if someone locally could go ahead and create a bid for the county and say, hey, we can come in close to that, or we can cut some costs that way. So it's
Yeah,
just,
we can.
the question was more based towards something that we might be able to look into as a county rather than just
One
focusing on your department.
Yeah, normally, like I said, in the past, we've always tried to stay local. It's just our budget was obviously, like I said, it was $10,000, so we had to, it just kept going up and up.
Yeah, this is
And
just,
so we're trying to go as paperless as possible. That's saving money. And then, like I said, we're just trying to find, and the lease that we have for our copier is a local piece.
perfect.
And
That's
so,
great to hear.
But yeah, we try to keep things local as we can, but sometimes we have to try to find where we can. So
Yeah,
but
thank you.
I'll look into that.
Yeah, and I will as well. I just wanted to see, like I said, second time that I've heard that, I'm like, maybe we can reach out to a couple of our local vendors
Right.
and say, hey, is there any way that you could help us cut some costs with printing?
Right.
And look into a whole system.
Okay, so equipment maintenance used to be $10,000. There for a while, and I've explained this in the past, and I'll explain it again. So our gel doors, when they remodeled, they didn't replace the old doors. And so they originally were supposed to have these maximum security locks. But due to them not replacing the old doors, they had to modify a different lock. And it bends. And so when individuals kick the door, not that anybody does that in my jail, but when people kick the door, they'll bend the plate and then I have to buy a new lock. It's about $3,000 a lock. And so in the past, it was, we had to buy, I think, about 4 locks one year. We can ask for restitution. Obviously, it's very rare that we'll ever get that back.
Sure.
But either way, I budgeted for because in the past, because there's no way I'm going to know how much I'm gonna need. So I tried to run averages and projections. I believe me and Gabe talked last year. The idea was, let's reduce that because, you know, your guys' projections were coming in lower. We were trying to make cuts. So I reduced it at 3,000. So at least that gives me 1 lock. And if I don't buy the lock, I still have, the washing machines, the kitchen equipment, stuff like that needs regular maintenance yearly. But I don't know if it's going to happen that year or something breaks. So I just kept it at 3,000. Obviously, we haven't spent that this year, and if you guys want to lower it, I'll lower it, but I have no way to project. So, and I understand, like, I know we're not, like I said last week, you know, to not budget for unknowns. But I have to have something in there, so I thought 3,000 based off past expenditures was. It's pretty close amounts.
And then probably one question I'll be asking quite a few departments, is there any deferred maintenance that you're foreseeing in the next year or in the next 5 years?
In regards to,
Just deferred maintenance, just larger deferred maintenance. That's one thing I haven't seen on anyone's budget, and I think it's something that we should start accounting for is, you know, and not putting you on the spot, but just all departments. I think we should be accounting for deferred maintenance, so we're not coming with hey, we have our HVAC, you know, that we know that was gonna break down, and we're like, here, it's an emergency expense, so that the county has time to actually plan for these larger expenses.
so I don't.
You don't have anything? Okay.
The jail was remodeled, how long ago?
Jails, they started the remodel in fall of 2016 and finished in fall of 2017. But I don't have any deferred maintenance that I'm aware of that's coming out.
Okay, thanks.
So it's just trying to keep pace afloat.
Perfect.
Basically.
I think that is good to bring up with each department, because we sat and reviewed library HVAC system last year and said, we're gonna leave this out of the budget and just take it when it came.
Yeah, I
And
think,
it came.
Then I guess the only thing that you would say that I know is going to break, and we probably come close to an emergency purchase. But that was with the IT side, and that's the server for all your cameras in this building at the
and
jail.
that's awesome. Yeah,
And I added it again. I budgeted for it last year, but due to budget cuts, we had to
Perfect.
cut it this year, so I added it again this year, and that's the capital. So,
The servers in your budget, it's on here,
yes.
first IT.
Yes, so this kind of brought up last week, Matt came in.
Yeah.
So
You might
each
come.
individual department is responsible for their own IT equipment. So we budgeted either in the inventory, or if it's large purchase like that, anything over 5,000 would be in the capital.
Yeah.
So, and the server is in the jail because most of your cameras are in the jail.
Oh, it lives,
That-
it lives in the jail down there.
Yes,
Mhm, yeah.
so, but that server also runs all the cameras throughout the building, the clerk auditors for commission, for anything, so. It's important to have that where it doesn't break or, cause I don't know what will, so. So, but I guess that'll skip the capital. Since it just went over.
perfect.
Look at that.
Thank
You got any, sorry, AJ, got any question?
No, nailed it, thanks.
The fuel, there shouldn't be any money, that should probably be moved. Commonly, there's one fuel account for the sheriff's office, and that's in the sheriff's budget. Unless you guys want to try and start separating jail vehicles versus sheriff's vehicles. I guess that would be a discussion with the sheriff, so. So that's just probably coded in the wrong spot, streets number $66. Professional and technical services. Well, the reason why that one went up, I did make cuts to that, but the reason why that one went up is in regards to the copier machine that we were discussing earlier. That was coming out of the emergency management's budget. I think originally Cora put it on her budget because her office was right there. But that just got moved back over the line, so that's the reason why. And in regards to those, we have the contracts for jail doors software, the DNA software is actually for the opening, the computer software for the doors. IDEMIA, the fingerprint systems that we have. You have to pay yearly, maintenance agreements for that.
What is
The water machines, go ahead, sorry.
I was just water machine for staff monthly payment, just like the water tank, like the thing in the
Yeah.
corner there?
Yeah, we actually, it was during COVID, in the past administration, they had that ultraviolet, whatever thing. And the company would hardline the water machine into your system. But yeah, it's a lease on the machines is what we pay for them. And so there's 2 machines that we have, well, 3, there's one, so as well. And it's just a water and ice machine. So if you run the cost, I actually think it's cheaper, the one we have, than it was when we were buying water bottles. Because we went through those water bottles a lot. So. And then, yeah, it's just policy, agreements, ongoing costs with that. And then for new hires, I budgeted over just 2, just in case, in regards to recycling exam programs. That comes up. They're about, I think, one's 250 the exam, and the other one's around 300 or a little over $300 in that.
What is Logicity? Logicity?
Oh, it's I don't know what's that. Me and Amy talked about that. I talk about it every year because I have to ask what it is. Well, I believe it's it's a report creator for Spillman that we use. It's like a crystal, it's used as crystal. It's like
Crystal reports.
Yes.
Thank you for writing.
Cell phones. Therefore, to cover all the employee cell phones. So some departments, like we used to get $45 per employee for whatever it is a month, and then the admin got 90, I think. And certain other departments are still on plan. We get work cell phones, so that's what that. I reduced the 400 account miscellaneous supplies. Obviously, that's just for gel clothes, blankets, soap, shampoo, stuff I need to run the facility. I've tried to reduce it where I can. Paper goods stayed the same. Means paper towels and toilet paper. Now, and that number is going to fluctuate depending on my population. Cleaning supplies, same. I don't know what I'm going to spend throughout the year based on that. Again, it just depends on population. Because as you can see in 2024, we went over the amount. Now, food budget, again, it's going up because running projections based off what our current spending is, we're gonna go over. So I made it at 120 and I've made the comment in there, we're still watching, they adjust. So, I mean, again, I've got to feed people, so.
Food costs are just up.
They are good, so they've went up, and like I said, and it's based off population.
Yeah.
Right now, our average population's gone up by, I think, about 10 or 15. So.
And Shan, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like the 25 actuals for a lot of these consumables are trending a little low, but that's maybe because at the end of the year, you kind of do a big replenishment of things that have been sort of expended, or is that, would you say that that's a fair
Well, I mean,
characterization?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you can probably break down the averages in 4 months. I mean, we'll be close to probably the $12,000 mark in regards to the paper towels, paper goods. The cleaning supplies will probably be about $1,000 under, but I could go over. I don't, like I said, it depends on population, and it depends on the time of the month. I know our population's been up consistently for the past 3 months.
Okay, thank you.
clothing allowance is exactly what it says it is. That's just pre-budgeted every year. We all get as deputies a certain amount, so. The services, I zeroed that out. That was, we had money in there in the past for like sewing on patches. And for our uniforms, nothing could be billed to that account for the past, I think. Yeah, well, 24, there were $600. I just zeroed it out. Server we already talked about, that's in the capital. The 800, so it shows that I'm negative $5,927. That is because we originally had budgeted for, because we had that grant in regards to the pretrial services. There was money that was in there budgeted. That we've already been paid back for the stuff that we purchased. There was like $10,000 worth of ankle monitors for that. That was grant funded. That was included in the budget, but due to budget cuts or whatever last year to hit that number that we all wanted to get at, that was. So me and Gabe talked about that at the beginning of the year. I told them that we were gonna go over, but we've already been paid for that. So something in budget. Press that.
And on that note, I might propose actually moving that expense to the capital projects general fund, and pulling it out of that fund where there is a fund balance specifically directed towards those types of expenditures. I'm feeling like there's good reasoning for that in general, and I've directed, like the airport department, for example, has capital lines. And I've been requesting that those expenses be made out of the capital projects general fund, and basically because I think when we can consolidate those types of expenses in that capital projects general fund, it's easier for us to just get a really quick idea of what our capital spending has been, rather than having to search through all these department budgets and hunt for these types of capital expenses. And it's, there's only so many expenses that hit that fund in a given year, so it's pretty easy to say like, oh, that was associated with this department. That's not a hard exercise. So this could be an example of $20,000 that we could move out of the general fund budget. If that's okay with you, Shan?
Yeah, for the capital, I assumed it was gonna be moving over to.
Okay, great.
And, yeah, so
I might actually just zero this out for the purposes of this discussion. And we'll put 20 in the other fund. Yeah.
so I'm asking for 4,600 this year. Again, that's for electronic chairs, or sorry, office chairs.
Electric chair.
That would be nice.
Wow.
Maybe we don't have that in Utah.
That's it.
The electric glove. So what that is, it's like a taser, right? And so if I'm going hands-on, we're in a cell. Sometimes tasers don't work. Mike can attest to this. Work. So, but if they hold up equipment or a blanket, mattresses, there's lots of things that. And so what these are is we actually looked into this last year, and I had it budgeted for last year, but to where the count's already in the negative, I just didn't buy them this year. So I'm rebudgeting again. What this is it's a way to control the inmate and the least amount.
Without
that we can. So, well, it's, so basically if an inmate's fighting you, you can grab them with the glove and then they'll stop fighting you. And then you just let go. And so you can use these gloves, you can search, it's just, it has to be full contact. They've demonstrated for us, like if an individual's fighting you on the ground, they won't give you your arms, lift up the shirt, fall down, their arms are coming out real quick. And so it's a great deterrent, and it helps my staff to where we're not going in. We just had to do a force sale the other day, where we had to go in on an individual, and we're just, none of the staff were hurt, thankfully. But there's times where we have to go in and we have to use force on individuals. This makes it safer for us and the individual that we're having to go in.
You strap on the Iron Man glove and walk in, and it helps them act right.
Pretty much, yeah. So, but so that's what that is, if you're wondering what the electric gloves are for. Other than that, it's computers. That we have to, there was a couple of computers that Matt gave me on the list that I had. good place, so. Trustee account, we pay the inmates to help out in the jail, they do custodial work and help in the kitchen cook. And yeah, the county saves a bunch of money in regards to employing kitchen staff. We have Sandy who does a great job in ordering and running the kitchen, but we pay the inmates to work in the kitchen. It used to be that we had two full-time staff with the kitchen, but to where one, it was hard to fill the position. But we kept Sandy's position and we were able to minus that position off the budget due to using the equipments to and making them work. So
Has that program been offline this year, Shannon?
no, it's just for whatever reason, we provide the numbers, but they never get coded. It's that way every year. I don't know why, but yeah, I think Amy's been given the odds. I don't know.
Okay.
So I know we provide your report. on a monthly basis. So it should be coded.
JB, can you just make sure to note follow up for 9:30? Thanks.
Health services, so the first one. That's just for state inmates, so currently we have 8 state inmates. Through the inmate placement program. When they have medical, it's covered by the state. If there is, where we have to purchase meds, like there's. This year we spent $223. That's prescriptions or something that we had to pick up here. We just get reimbursed by the state, send it back. So. That's why those counts aren't very. Large, or they don't get spent that often. And they're reimbursed. I know, we need to change this because it says state prisoners and jail. So I don't know why we have the state medical one and the jail one, and state prisoner one is the county medical one. So we need to fix that. I don't know why it's always been that way. For the inmate expenses, 310 account, that's just stuff that comes up that we need to purchase. I don't even know, but commissary expenses has always been 0. It's just always had $100 in there for whatever reason. Inmate medical expenses, that's the county inmates. So we have a current agreement with the hospital. And we use state code in regards to, because we're required to pay for all inmate expenses, other than a $5 copay that the inmate has to pay for doctor visits. And a $2 copay for their prescriptions. The county's required to pay the costs remaining. For doctor visits, so when we take somebody to the ER or medical visit in the hospital, we pay either the non-capitated Medicaid rate. Or we have to pay, I believe it's 41 or 42% if it's not able to be coded in that Medicaid rate. So it just depends on that number. We've consistently just kind of put the $60,000 to $70,000 in there. It's pretty common that we spend that. And yeah, it also depends on the inmates that we have. We have one inmate in there that the prescription costs us $9,800 a month. So I'm hoping that it gets out or goes to prison. Either way, hopefully the latter. Yeah. So, but either way, it depends. And so, but Amy does a great job in coding all those. I mean, we'll have a $30,000 bill that we only end up paying like $3,000 for. As we break down the codes, saves us a bunch of money. We are, the sheriff, we're currently working on another contract with the hospital to try to get more medical services. And to hopefully alleviate some of those ER costs. And trying to get more nursing staff. The contract still works, obviously, we'll send that to you if and when it's finished. So I don't have those kind of numbers, so that's why we left the budget the same.
I got 3 questions just real quick for you. It's going back up to employees. So how many employees did you have in 24 to 25, do you think? And then how many are you forecasting for 26?
24, I was full staffed. So it would have been, there's 8 deputies and 2 sergeants. So I was full staff last year. This year I've been down one the entire year. So when we just offered somebody a position, they won't start the academy until November.
Okay, and so next year you're looking at being at 10 then?
Be full staff again.
Perfect.
Is my hope.
Are
And
there
then-
nurses on staff in there?
I have one part-time nurse because it's required to have a part-time RN due to having state events.
And part of the consideration with the ED visits over there would be a full-time nurse here or another full-time nurse.
Now, what the plan is right now, is to work out an agreement to where, the hospital will send a nurse 3 times a day. So they'll come do med pass, go through, do their initial assessments, medical assessments, and sick call or whatever, they leave. It's because we hand out medications 4 times a day. And so the staff are required, trying to alleviate liability for the county, and medical's your biggest liability.
And then just inmates, do you have an idea, just a rough number of 24, 25 and 20, or 24 and 25?
Averages.
Yeah, averages.
This year, our average is probably 40, I would imagine, it's gone up. Last year, I think our average was 34.
34.
The year prior to that, I think it was higher because that would have been 20. We all get elected. Usually my numbers go through the roof when there's elected.
Gives me, that's a perfect average, that's all I need there. And then the last is, do you have a, or are you gonna be tracking the number of tourists that are being, incarcerated?
I've never have.
I think that it would be wise if we started keeping track of that, just because as these grants become available at the state, I think that we need to make sure that we're accounting for all of those costs, so that we can be looking for those grants going all the way through.
So, I mean, I could try and run number whether they're a tourist, that's different. So because we have a lot of arrests that people are just driving on I-70, right?
That's a tourist.
But they're not even coming into Moab.
But that's just fine. That's still a visitor right there.
So I can probably separate,
Be a non-resident.
yeah, I can separate it by that,
And so,
non-resident versus
You got
resident.
me, give me just 2 seconds here. I'll look it up here. We can go back in just a second.
I-
But there is a formula that they're gonna be looking for when we're applying for grants next year. And we are very eligible to receive these grants. And so I'd like to just make sure that we're starting to keep track of where we're at with it. Give me
Well,
1
in
second. I'll
theory,
pull it up.
like you have their address, so you could.
Well, so
source it
I
out,
think the
yeah.
easier, and I will help the SO with this, it wouldn't be incarcerated. I mean, cause you could come to jail, then you're out within an hour. So
But
if you wanna.
but you still incurred expenses with that, correct?
Yeah, if they come in the facility, I mean, I'm paying
Exactly.
staff, but what I'm trying to help do that number, I would do a whole number, for the SO, and I would count arrests versus residents versus non-residents. Because even a citation is a form of arrest.
Yeah.
And so if they put them in a vehicle, they're in custody, that's an extension of the jail.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so that's incurring costs, so my recommendation, and I'm fine with helping provide these numbers, my recommendation would be arrests for the county versus just those that are currently in my facility.
Well, I
Because
just,
that would give you a more realistic number.
Yeah.
That's what I.
yeah, and I'm not just looking for that, but I'm just, I just wanna make sure that those expenses are gonna be tabulated at the end of the year, because as of July 1st right now, right, we are gonna be eligible for funds, right? And so I just wanna make sure that we're catching all departments that might be eligible that we're not thinking about, so that we can go ahead, when we apply, we can say, hey, this is coming in from, it might just say sheriff, but we can say, look, we also have the jail cost right here,
And
as
so
well as the
what,
search and rescue.
right, and so what we could maybe do is do like a total resident versus non-residents, arrests, and then I could also break down resident versus non-residents, the average stay in my jail.
Yep.
And try and do that and give you guys, because that's, I think you would have to do all of it to give an actual.
Yeah, and I just wanna make sure that we're putting this into our plans right now, is because I think it's not just resident versus non-resident, but there's 3 categories. I think it's resident of Grand County, right? It's somebody who's a resident of the state, and then it's somebody who is outside of the state. So we need to be keeping track of all 3 of those categories as we're going through,
Yeah.
because that'll all play a part in this grant application.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
That's-
we can,
I think the biggest problem we're gonna find is
somebody within our office to have the time to figure that out.
Exactly, and that's why I'm looking at, maybe if we look at the departments and say, hey, just make sure that we have this calculated, so you're, as you're going through, you can say at the end of the month, you can go, hey, look, we had this happen, this happened, this happened. So the whole burden doesn't fall on your
What I
desk.
think we might be able to do, we can maybe all get box.
Perfect, yeah, I just wanted to start that conversation.
I have one question. Your average that you're using for inmates, is that including the state?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Perfect.
You talked about, I missed it, but if you talked about the revenue, I haven't gotten up there, I'm just getting ready to finish up, expenses. So if you see down in the percentage wise, it says I'm 104, almost 5% more. When that, no, I'm just, and the reason why is the court security salary was moved over, so if you took that off, I would actually probably be about 1% less than what I was last year. It's like I said, we've been working really hard to try and make cuts where we can. We have facilities to run, so, and if you look down, and Gabe's got it pulled up. So I've got all of my, tried to itemize what I can, I try and do that every year in regards to 400 to 800 training and so on. But I also included this year, because the conversation has been revenue. So I included my projections for 2025. The jail will bring in about 392,000. Next year, we're projected probably around 426. And that's just the state inmate. The numbers change in July, usually we got more money. So 8 state inmates for the year was for next year, unless the number goes up again, will be $250,000 for the year just for the state inmates. The reason why I mentioned that is because you take that $392,000 and you take my entire budget, other than salaries and most of the benefits, the state pays for the entire budget. And so I just wanted to make a note to that, and I would like to make that a formal. That this is I understand we're trying to make cuts and I always do, but I just want to make a note that the revenue that the jail does bring in from housing state inmates to COP, we're just not this huge burden on the county is what I'm trying to say.
Totally.
We do bring in
I
revenue.
understand that.
And I want to make it a note that, like I said, that's most, or if not my entire operational budget is covered by just housing 8 inmates and the COP, which is the condition of probation.
And so it was 392 for 2025.
That's a projected, yes.
Yeah, and then your projected is going to be 426
next year.
Perfect, yeah, thanks.
So just a question about your state inmates. Do you have the capacity to hold more? Because I know you have them in.
So-
Anyways.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think legislatively, because you have to have a number approved by the legislation, our original number is 20. I can't house 20. I don't have the Rittmar County population fluctuates too much. In the tier that I'm currently at, I can probably house 12. Problem with the dorm is we have no room to store their properties. It's different from cells and state inmates. They're long-term. That's their house essentially, because they're there for years. And so they accumulate a lot of stuff. So if I added more, there's just no room. And the problem with jails or prisons in the past is when you start having problems, is overpopulations. And that it makes it too busy in that tier, so I just don't house more than that right now. We can't house more.
So pie in the sky. If I may,
Sure.
if we built a new facility, we would project or try to build for housing more state.
And that's what all the other counties are doing.
Right, okay, right.
Like the county south of us, they're
No.
Yes,
doubling
I thought.
because they don't make very much money in TRT,
Yeah.
so they have so much revenue that's coming in from jail that they now fall into those stores.
Right, and their budget, I mean, their SO is pretty much covered by just state inmates.
Yeah.
Because they don't just house the state inmates, they do an SO program, assessment program.
Yeah.
So the current rate, I believe, is between $83 and $84 a day per state inmate right now. And then they get an additional, San Juan gets an additional $20, supposed to be $20 a day per inmate. for the program, so they're making about $106 a day for, and if they're doubling their pop, they're probably gonna be around 170 in the state inmates, so times that by 105 a day for the years, it's quite a bit of money. And that's why pretty much every state or every county houses state inmates. And everybody's concerned that if we build on, there's gonna be, we may not get inmates, but I just gonna talk to the state the other day and they're bleeding, they're looking for more people to build a small house because they built a smaller prison. And so
So,
they rely on counties to house the state inmates, they pay us to do it. So.
can I generalize for a second? You
generally-
just watching when I go in, I just think the state inmates, tell me if I'm wrong, are just much less work. They're very
Yeah,
accustomed to, right, the rhymes of the day and, they do all the jobs, kitchen, laundry, cleaning and.
so and ideally, you're right, and if we had more state inmates, we would start a work crew and we would go outside and do other stuff where you could probably cut costs and that kind of stuff as well, but I mean. If you could increase to the 20 if we had the space, and I wouldn't even have to increase my staff.
Right.
And so if you guys do consider remodeling, and which I recommend you guys do, or adding on or building a new facility, you would include the inmates to help cover that cost. So that's my recommendation. If you increase so much like San Juan or some of these other counties, we would have to increase staff.
Would you have to increase staff if you were gonna put a work crew out?
No, I think that's what we changed the schedules also, because Jameson wants to start doing that with county inmates. And so it's just, to where we have these double coverage days, we would just plan those work crews on those double coverage days. To where we have enough staff, and it doesn't, we don't get overtime, so.
And just that additional staff, what is the impact on your budget of that additional staff member that got moved over?
I think,
Just trying to-
I think
trying to-
all in all, it's probably with benefits and everything, you would have to ask Tess, but probably close to 2. With benefits, it's. he's been
200 grand. Okay, so yeah,
Well, you're talking retirement benefits, salary, he's also been here for 43 years, so he's the top.
I'm trying to take in the additional revenue that you're putting in, subtracting from the expenses that you had. And I came up with about 60 grand additional right now. So we're looking at basically 60,000 in the red compared to last year, but that doesn't account for that additional staff member that's
Right.
coming over. So with that, being at 200 grand, you're looking at, you're dropping your budget by about 140,000. Is the way that I would look at it as a total plus and minus. Does that seem about right?
So me dropping my budget.
Yeah, from last year, from 2025 to 2026, what I'm seeing right here, if I account for the expenses rising up, I'm sorry, the revenue, the
Right.
increase in revenue minus the expenses right there, it looks like it was at about 60,000.
Okay.
Right? So it's 60,
I think so,
2026 would be about 60,000 more than 2025
without the new position or with the new.
with the new position. So if I subtracted that new position, right, you'd be looking at, you
I would
have.
be, yes, I would
Yeah,
have
you'd-
savings up, yes.
Yes, correct. Yeah, I'm just looking at the total, like if I had to put everything in here and everything here, where we're sitting at compared to last year. Okay, great, thank you.
And I
That-
think there's a question for the position that's being moved over, that will be $170,000 based on current projections. An important note is because we are out to bid for our insurance, we are using the figures that we had from last year to calculate insurance benefits for staff, but that is not a solidified number yet. So again, we're gonna have some changes to everybody's personnel budgets, but we're working off of the best number that we have right now.
So you're looking at about 110,000 under, so thank you for making that effort.
You're welcome. You guys got any questions for me? I'll stop pontificating.
Nice job.
There it is. There it is. All right, any other questions or comments? Sorry, we just did that. Okay, thank you, Jail Commander Hackwell. And we'll move right along to the next budget. This is the sheriff's category, which includes, which does include search and rescue built in, as we'll see. you know, it's something that we can talk about now, and it's something that can be implemented in the 2026 budget. It's something I brought up before, and it, you know, I'm not sure what might be the holdup. But I'm open to creating a category similar to the way we have a category for dispatch and emergency management. I'm open to creating a category for search and rescue in the same way, within the general fund. So I just want to, state that, for the record, if for purposes of clarity, that would be desired, I have no resistance to that.
I would second that as well.
If we do that, it's gonna be a pain in the butt. I'm gonna have. I have some of these line items that pay for search and rescue stuff that doesn't, we're gonna have to ask people to get it recoded and.
Understood.
So I mean, you can take the salaries out and the SAR overtime pay. But that'd be about it, because everything else, I mean, all the fuel for equipment maintenance, all that stuff still gets coded into this, and so it's a much bigger split fuel probably. It just, it's up to you. You can move out the SAR benefits, SAR salaries, SAR overtime pay to their own thing, but.
Okay.
It's gonna take months and months to try to figure out their other line items and how much money they're gonna need for that.
Okay, allow me to consider that. Thank you for giving me the sort of the real nitty gritty on what the reality is there. You know, I think it could be worth seeing. You know, what kind of standards exist across the state in terms of how the search and rescue is budgeted, and you know, seeing if we're following you know, kind of best practices in that sense. But it's sounding to me like it would be a you know, long-term effort that perhaps we could achieve for a 2027 budget, if not this 2026 budget, given the amount of effort that you're describing. But let's, yeah, I'm going to move on. Thank you.
I've got one question for you on salaries, Jameson. I know, with the discussion we had just a little bit earlier about the 911 service and the money that's owed, we've also had discussions, about hiring our own victims advocate.
Yeah.
And would you see that sitting under you or under the county attorney? Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. I know it hasn't happened yet, but it is something that we need to look towards.
It used to be under the sheriff's office, but it just makes more sense. They do more work for the county attorney than they do for.
Okay, and so there's a reduction here in the salary, and is that?
That was because we moved the position over to the jail.
Okay. So, and that would be the reason, the entire reason for that amount of change there?
The overtime, we've lowered. From 151 to 125, things can change, but we feel confident where we could lower that. We're gonna try to make some positions go to salary. This budget year instead of hourly.
Okay. And then another note to add here is that SAR salaries and SAR benefits, those are reduced from 25 to 26 because SAR Commander Brad Hines' salary and benefits are now included in the more general salaries and benefits lines. And then what is left for SAR salaries and SAR benefits? Can you describe, Scott or Jameson, can you describe what's left in there? Is that just sort of the part-time SAR staff or?
Yeah, well, I mean, the entire staff is part-time.
Thank you, yeah.
It's just hourly. Hourly payroll.
Okay. And so and it's just isolating everything because the entire staff is part-time other than SAR Commander Hines. And so the intent here is just to isolate that class of salary and benefit that doesn't sort of belong to the general sheriff budget, I guess.
I don't know, Tess, could you help me with this? I know there was a bit of confusion and there were some, I think some difficulties happened when we had Brad Brad's salary and the SAR salaries and those benefits, and we made that change, and I think we were gonna try to move the SAR salary budget to it similar to how the dispatch and jail work, and it seems to me it was a Cassell sort of difficulty in.
Got it.
Yeah, it
Thanks.
just, yeah, we just need to change how it's coded. I do think that, or at least our recommendation for personnel services is that we have some continuity in how we handle these different groups that fall under the Grant County Sheriff's Office umbrella. So because, for instance, we have jail broken out, we have dispatch broken out. Our recommendation, it makes the most sense to have SAR broken out as well.
So it sounds like it's increasing our efficiency, reducing the likelihood of errors when we can categorize staffing in this way.
Just more clarity, more understanding of, you know, particularly for SAR. There are a certain number of, you know, essentially a pool of hours, and we then average each SAR member is maybe going to work 300 hours annually, but that's not necessarily the case. Some may work 100, some may work 500, et cetera. But I think having it broken out is going to have help us better understand exactly what's the level of need in SAR, how many hours are we actually sending people out.
I just want to go back real quick, and I apologize here, but going back to the splitting out of the search and rescue, and I understand that this is going to be a trouble. I just went back through the TRT code right here, and this is where I was originally going to go into is, so right now, under the way that we're funding, these funds are going to be split off in two different accounts. So now we call it what they're called emergency cost, and we have visitor related safety costs. So search and rescue actually is going to fall under emergency cost, and law enforcement will fall under visitor-related safety cost. Now, we haven't received the state auditor report right now, and actually just at UAC, they are finishing that up. But it does list it in this TRT code of how that's going to be. So even for 2025, those costs are gonna have to be separated for the state auditor report right there. So I do think that it is an exercise that we might need to go ahead and split off just for that. So there's gonna be two pieces of it. There's gonna be the grant that we were talking about earlier, but also there's going to be a TRT report that's gonna be due to the state that Gabe's gonna be in charge of. And either which way, we are gonna have to split off those two accounts. Because as I look at it right here, emergency costs, which is search and rescue, EMS, in direct relation to an individual who is in the county for the purpose of outdoor rec. And then there is visitor related costs, which is road repair, solid waste, law enforcement. So we are gonna have to separate those, and I don't know what that report is gonna look like when it does finally get out, but it does state it in the statute right there that there are going to be two separate.
That's exactly what I was gonna
Yeah.
ask you, Brian, is.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand, but that's what we're gonna look at.
Too is, I mean, sometimes our deputies, law enforcement officers handle search and rescues and they don't page out SAR.
Sure, yeah.
So that's something also to think about. I mean, do we just not have them go and handle SARs and just
No.
have SAR do it?
I think that you should do it, but I think that we're gonna somehow need to be able to code or account, we're gonna need to account for it, just because those are two separate things that are in the statute right there.
Yeah.
And I think that if we can look at it, I mean, starting right now, if we look at it from July 1st forward, right? Because that's when the state law took effect, was July 1st. So anything this year, July 1st forward, we should be accounting for. And then anything, in previous of July 1st, we're not gonna be responsible for those reports. That's my understanding of it. Gabe is my,
Yeah.
So if we
You're right.
separate out SAR, are we taking Brad's salary with it too? That's he's this argument.
100%.
Figure that out. This is also gonna be able.
Then any sheriff that did respond to a SAR would have to be billable to that account to a SAR line item,
Correct.
like they transition, I'm no longer sheriffing, doing SAR work. Counted there. What's that?
Do you guys go through, like,
It's gonna be so interesting because the state
Yeah.
law reads the sheriff's in charge of SAR, so then. It's gonna be a nightmare.
Yeah, I'm willing to sit down with you and look at it, just how it's written. I don't know. I just want to make sure that, one of the big things is making sure that we're compliant on this right here
Yeah.
as it comes through.
I don't think it's a
Don't worry.
question of whether that, it's just how.
How we do it.
Separate it out, we
Yeah.
start, well, yeah, I have no idea.
Gotta figure it out.
yeah,
Uncharted territory.
I know, I was thinking of like QuickBooks, and Bill, you probably did this with construction, it's like you would code jobs, right? Like they're here, this job, and you know what I mean, but.
Regarding that grant that he keeps alluding to there, I believe that we are the #1 county in line for that
Okay.
grant.
Yeah.
And to be
And so this is a way,
lackadaisical, or maybe that's not the right word, but we'd be remiss to not
To go for
be
it.
right there saying, listen, we deserve this.
and it's twofold, right? So there's the grant, right? And so right now we're collecting on all hotels in the state of Utah, 0.25% is getting collected on every single hotel. And Grand County is very well positioned to receive those funds
Yeah.
right now, but
It's not on
But
just
second-
our.
But secondly, so that's point one right there that we were kind of talking about and we're looking for in the future. But secondly, there's a TRT report that's going to be due to the state auditor. So these are two separate things. And they're very similar, but people I think are getting them confused. So there's the grant, and that's going to be a whole board that deals with it. And then there's also going to be an auditor's report that's going to be due at the end of the year. And we want to make sure that we're able to separate out these expenses at the end of the year based on what that report is.
Okay.
You're really gonna love this idea, because we're trying to cut costs, but it is a thought that, I mean, I think we're gonna have to think about, even if it's on a contract basis, hiring a grant writer that is applying for all these grants for all these various departments, because anyways, just ideas, because it's feasible that within a department, you just don't have somebody that has that skill set. So, it's just, you know.
Yeah.
That's right.
Jameson, I'm happy to sit down with you guys and help budget. And kind of come up with some ideas of, to start the project for,
Alright.
maybe calculating, those different things. I can set up some spreadsheets and
Okay.
try and help in any way I can. I'm here to help you
Yeah.
guys.
No, it's,
It's on a contract basis, right?
no, I actually
So-
think that's a great idea, Trish, to make sure that we have somebody set to go ahead and
Right.
make sure that we're eligible, because
Yeah.
it's gonna get very complicated very
Yeah,
quickly.
because I know that was one thing the rec district asked me, like, who's gonna write these grants? And it's like, yeah, who is gonna do it?
Is there a certain amount of money that the state's willing to give out, and once they reach that, then they're out, or do they have an unlimited fund in that grant?
No, it is gonna be limited. So they did set grant priorities. So #1 grant priority is gonna be to emergency cost. So the #1 would be for search and rescue, EMS, and then the next priority is counties with a smaller population.
Oh.
Right? So that's pretty good for us. #3 is prioritized by the amount of outdoor rec taking place. Right? That's us right there. And then #4 is the capacity to manage. So as long as we are showing that we don't have the capacity basically to manage this right here, that it is affecting our general fund and it's not coming out of the mitigation. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're right there on the top. And so if we can show those funds that are needed for search and rescue, right, are higher, right? And then we can basically relieve pressure on the general fund that
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
And so that's, and that's like that's another conversation, and I'm sure that's gonna start taking place at the beginning of the year. That board will be formed at the beginning of the year, according to what I just heard from UAC. So they're starting to look into it. And then we will be receiving, there will be applications out for those grants sometime mid-year next year. And those will basically be from, because they're collecting it from July 1st right now. So there is going to be, some funds available. We don't know how that's all gonna play out, so I wouldn't plan on it. But I would want to make sure that we are positioned to receive those funds.
Yes, we really need to think about that.
I don't think it's. In regards to the coming up with numbers on what the cost is, I mean, you're just gonna pull their salaries. Benefits, I guess, because all that is working comp on. The SARS salary benefits, the only. Issue, or not even issue, everyone's gonna be a complication for the sheriff's office is. Just documenting how would we separate this deputy that spent 2 hours on this call. Then went to another call and went back to the SAR. So we would have, it's gonna be a.
We have to code each call.
Yeah,
And then, yeah, we would have to just figure out something spilled where we can just add.
And then, and on top of that, you're gonna have that next little layer is, so, you have to go out on this call, and we also need to make sure that we're documenting, is this person from Grand County? Is this person in the state, or is this person out of state? And so just,
We do that.
yeah, you do that. So I'm just saying, we gotta make sure that we have that broken down as well. So you have, your first breakdown, and then it'll have to be that further breakdown right
Yeah,
there for the
and
state.
Brian, if I could say, you know, I had looked over that document you had forwarded to me, and we've made several changes to how we record every SAR call starting on January 1st
Perfect.
to include all things such as road conditions that made it more difficult, other conditions that made our SAR more
More expensive.
difficult, how old they are, where they're from, everything that you know, in that sense, there are those random times where we don't get any information because Classic might
We'll have now.
fly in and take them out, and we don't then have access to that patient information due to HIPAA.
Well, thanks for doing that. I appreciate it.
The one question I kind of have in relation to that grant and that revenue stream then is, does that revenue come back to the sheriff's office, or does that go into the general fund?
It comes back into the sheriff's office by virtue of a general fund offsetting costs that. Yeah, I mean,
Goes in the black hole. It's not restricted.
yes, it goes in the black, it goes in the black.
I actually would imagine that it would be restricted, right? Because, you know,
Depends on,
usually grant funds are a restricted fund.
yeah, it depends on the grant. So
Yeah.
unless it says that it's just reimbursing your cost or whatever, or it says it can only be used for X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, and I think that that's gonna be determined once that grant board gets formed, right? That they'll say, hey, this is how we wanna make sure that these funds are protected.
Okay, well, restricted funds are first out, so unless those funds exceed the amount we spend on law enforcement, then they'll be the first out and there won't be any left over.
Cool.
Okay,
Thanks.
great, and so I'm just looking here at the budget, just pick things back up. You know, I'm just seeing a lot of carryovers from our blue column, the budget from this year into next. And a lot of numbers that are either holding flat or some small reductions. A little increase in vehicle lease from 294 to 300.
The reason for that was the grant that was funded. For the pretrial service deputy that wasn't applied to this, because we. Didn't know if we were successful yet or not,
Okay,
but the one new vehicle we added is 100% reimbursed via the state. For this 2025 budgets, so that's why you're gonna see that increase there. The CCJJ is the one that's been paying for that pretrial service deputy's salary and vehicle go along with it.
okay, and just looking down these lines, are there any other comments that you wanna share regarding?
We lowered our fuel. We're trying to get everybody to pay or go to the county roads department to get their fuel, because when we do that, we don't have to pay the tax. Like if you go to Maverick, they've got to pay the tax, and you don't get the bulk savings price. So we're having staff go to the county roads to get their fuel there. So that's made a significant impact on the amount of money that we're spending fuel. So that's why we lowered that line item from 130,000 to 115,000. Seems like a lot of money, but we really have a giant county. We have to control some calls to 2 hours to get there. The other line item, the professional and technical, it's gonna be an increase, and it's due to the Senate Bill 124 early intervention. Was it was actually one of the only bills that had lately that was a state mandated that they paid for it for the first year, but then after that you have to eat it. So this second year of 2026, we're not gonna be reimbursed by the state for it, and that bill went up. The first year was a little bit cheaper. I think it was like 1,000, and then next year it's gonna be 27,000. The third year is probably gonna be 30,000. All the contracts in that professional and technical were signed off by the commission. Tasers, body cameras, flexible policy management. Let's see. Capital equipment, Matt recommends. I've been pushing on computers for 3 years. Matt says.
Like it turns on.
Yeah.
Matt says that he recommends 13 patrol deputy laptops, $36,400, management laptop, $1,500. SAR computers, 2,400, investigation computer, 800. Most of these items were pushed back for 2 years with budget issues, and now Matt IT man right down.
Got 6 years out of the last one.
Should those be, in capital as well, just like previously in the share?
We don't capitalize things like laptops, and I almost see them as like smaller individual purchases rather than a larger.
Normally that's, I think, normally it's always come out of Ada. But it's such a large one-time thing, so that's where it was like, we put this into capital
Yep.
versus a $42,000 or whatever, $36,000. $800.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, I kind of like it broken out in this line within this budget, so it's not mixed in with the rest of the inventory.
Okay.
Yeah. I agree.
The next things that we have on here is, let's see. You can talk about search and rescue stuff.
Feel like the notes say most of it. I guess I just put it out if there's any questions for the search and rescue, capital.
Most of your stuff's just basically the same, like standard operating cost. Do you guys have any grants?
I think the biggest thing is the 82,232, and that's. We want to put that in the budget to have the upfront funds to purchase 2 UTVs. We were awarded the OHVR grant, and it's gonna cover 75% of that figure. And in addition to that, to keep the money really out of the county, we're gonna throw 10,000 at it from our donations. And the remainder, we kind of figure that that final figure will be reimbursed through the state SAR reimbursement program for new equipment. It seems that, so we 75 is up as from the state DNR, and then we've got to come up with the other 25% somewhere. So that's where the 10,000 from donations, and then that 25%, we can submit that to the state SAR reimbursement board. That then gets it's generally been approved, but we don't always know how much of that approval we're going to get back. In the past year, I think we were approved for about $90,000 in reimbursement, and of that approval, the state SAR reimbursement board only has such a large pot, and I think I'm guessing it's going to be closed at around $45,000. So I figure if we put in for that 25%, we'll have about half of that covered by state SAR reimbursement, and that also, offsets the other a lot of our other purchases that we make in some of these other accounts as well, which we have noted.
And just a quick question on that grant. The typical for grants for search and rescue on those OHVs are, do you remember what that percentage is normally that the state would qualify for?
We got the max.
I thought that the normal max was 50%. So is it 75%?
Yeah, and
Okay.
and just throwing this out there, we should be receiving a check from the state DNR for around $43,000 within the next, week or two. And that's going to be the reimbursement from the Can-Am that the sheriff's office purchased beginning of the year. And I think that's the intent to use for patrols and getting EMS to the scene faster. And actually that grant was reimbursed at more than 75% of what we spent. And that's because we ended up getting some discounts from state vendors. I foresee the same thing happening in the $82,000 we're requesting, because $7,000 of that is for contingency. If, we have to go get estimates in I think it was like in April or May, and we're not able to buy them until January. So there could very well be an increase in in cost, and so that's budgeted in there. I did, in researching these UTVs, I found a couple of different dealers that had 2024 models, which represented a savings. So that $82,000 in change, I think, is actually gonna be over what we really need, but I put it in there just in case.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, overall, the budget that, if there aren't any other questions specific to SAR, to search and rescue, it looks like the overall total budget that we just reviewed, comes out to 4.59 million for a 26 draft proposal, which represents 90% of the approved total for this 2025 year.
I've had some people ask about where money goes when a citation is issued. I have the breakdown, but really in the scheme of things, it ultimately comes back, a small percentage comes back to the general fund.
I had one question regarding your vehicles. I know that, I believe you've got people that are traveling back and forth to work that live out of town in your vehicles. Are these vehicles all leased? I guess my questions are several, you know, we're seeing a increase in yearly mileage on those vehicles. Is that causing you the need to change them out sooner? Are we
Yeah.
compensated?
Get rid of them before they reach 100,000 miles. So say like Mike lives in Moab and I live out in LaSalle. If I'm starting to put too many miles on this vehicle, admin steps and says you guys need to switch your vehicles.
Rotate them.
And they're supposed to, when the market goes up, tell us. So we get rid of those cars, do factory orders. This should start, you know, the money that we sell to put towards the next one should eventually start paying for itself.
I think that the standard theory behind all of that has changed those, because that was more in line during COVID. And most people will tell you in the fleet now that you're better off owning your vehicles rather than leasing them. Not that I'm suggesting you go to that, but that, I understand that theory is now much less likely to ever come back to where we get our money back out of them. But I'm wondering on the fuel as well and the mileage, are we tracking that? Because that's a cost that deputy is costing us over somebody that's local, and I don't wanna make an issue of it, that's not my point, but there is certainly, if they're coming from Mac every day, a mileage and a cost associated.
We don't have any. We only have one person that lives outside. Jason.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's one person, we have two. I thought it was just one. No, we have some living in LaSalle. And also. Yeah, but two more. Oh, yeah, I forget about those guys. So, Jason says we get a field report every month, so I'm able to look at it and see, you know, versus, productivity versus mileage too.
Yeah.
What they're getting out of the fuels, miles per gallon, all that kind of stuff.
Well, I think that helps that you're rotating.
Yes.
To keep
Look
that.
at I mean, I've only put 10,000 miles on mine and your chain, but
I've done some research into it. Some counties, like say SARS leased vehicle, it probably makes more sense to just buy that outright. Cause they maybe put 1,000 miles on it here, maybe.
Right.
Instead of making a monthly payment of $1,000 a month. So that we could look into something like that with maybe some of our admin rights, but we don't put very many miles on, we just buy them outright. But for our patrol deputies, they do put so many miles on them, even if they live out of town. I mean, just their calls, if they're, it makes more sense to have them on a lease program. If they put so many miles on.
Yeah.
So.
Next, I got the same three broken record questions. Is, do you happen to have an, about what employees that you had in 24, 25, and what you're planning for 26? If not, you can just, you can email me that, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And then same with number of calls, 24 and 25, because
Yeah, I have that. I mean, I
Yeah.
took that out of it.
yeah, I know, but just to add it in, just so I can look at it in one spot. And then third would just be, are there any deferred maintenance that you have coming up, or you're seeing in the next 1 year and then in 5 years? And once again, you don't have, I'm not asking it on the spot right now, but just if you could email me that, just so we can have just a general overlook of where
I
we're
mean,
looking.
I would say the things that we've talked about, I mean, I think there's imperative needs, for your evidence.
Well, just the whole bus barn.
Yeah,
The whole, the roof's leaking. I was in there
Yeah.
yesterday, it's just leaking.
That's
Mhm.
bad. I don't know if he's
And that
taking you
leads
on a
to Victoria.
tour, he could take you
He's
on a
offered,
tour.
I
Okay, yeah,
I need to go, but
you
I,
should look at
yeah,
it.
but I'd like to just make sure that we're at least putting that
Yeah.
in and we're all starting to look at
I
that.
mean, that might be something
Does
that.
that bus barn fall under you or under Sean's budget?
Sean's budget,
Oh, okay.
that maintenance, or dry.
So, yeah.
It's
So,
bad.
Great. Seeing no other comments, I appreciate everyone who's contributed, and presented their draft budgets and been available here to present before the board. And we'll move on to the next portion of our agenda, which is review of budget advisory board bylaws. So a little background, I'm gonna open up that document. Because of the, well, I mean, because it's good to review bylaws and such things, on a yearly basis as the board meets. But also due to, the sort of a bit of a conflict with composition as it's currently stated in, the documents related to the board. With, the assignment of 3 commissioners rather than 2 as currently printed.
Gabe,
Yes,
can I interrupt you
Please.
for just one moment? These guys are free to go, are they not? Unless they want to review our bylaws.
thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for helping me make that clear. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We'd love to have your input.
Have a good day.
I can't pull one off of.
You can't pull it off of the county agenda.
There's one right there, with like a bucket in the middle of the table.
Let's do a hard copy. Sir.
Is that all of it?
No.
Here, I am able to pull it off, so take my copy.
So the main items we discussed, or that I've included a proposal in the red line. And so I fully expect that there will be conversation and potentially different suggestions with regards to how to handle this situation. But we discussed last meeting that the potential that having 8 voting members as we currently would have if we if the commission adopted this change, that wouldn't create the normal conflict that you would be concerned about, and having an even number of voting members with split votes and such things. Because this is not a voting heavy board. That was
Right.
kind of something that we discussed. And so I've just added this language to change from 7 to up to 8, and from 2 county commission members to up to 3. And then the other thing that we discussed specifically regarding the board responsibilities was, sort of there are a number of responsibilities that had been, applied to this board that in practice are much more applicable to the internal audit committee. And so,
And I think that's just the audit committee, because
I'm
we
sorry.
both reviewed, just for clarification.
the
for
audit
minutes.
committee.
Yeah.
And then, and so just removing those items that are more, more applicable to the audit
Mhm.
committee. And specifically, I don't know if it seems light as far as board responsibilities, but what I've left in this red line is reviews proposed departmental budgets, including all revenues and expenses overseen by the county. Forwards a tentative budget to be reviewed and adopted by the county commission, and includes with the forwarded tentative budget a list of comments to be reviewed by the county commission and considered prior to adoption of a final budget. So that means like through that November process where workshops are happening, that's when there's this formal budget advisory board, sort of comment presentation that can help to guide and advise the county commission. There could be other items added to that, that we could discuss.
Question on that.
Yes,
Where would performance reviews fall in, do you think? Would that fall in under this budget advisory board, or would that fall more under an audit committee?
performance reviews
Of
as it,
As it relates to department heads?
as it relates to department heads.
Which office?
Just all offices.
I don't think. Well,
Well,
So am I understanding the question of who's completing, performance reviews for specific department heads, is that?
Well, I would imagine that department heads can, perform their, performance reviews for all of their employees.
Yes,
And then I would imagine that, admin, creates, performance reviews for all the department heads,
correct.
right? I'm just wondering if it wouldn't be, appropriate to have this board right here, since they're doing the budget of those, at least review or look over those performance reviews. Or if there, I'm just looking to see if there's a mechanism inside of the county to review those performance reviews, or if they're being completed at all.
And may I
Yeah.
ask a clarifying question? So in regards to the inquiry about this committee reviewing performance reviews, are you inquiring whether or not it would be feasible and appropriate for you to specifically be looking at, say, Tess Barger's performance review and reading through the feedback and my scores? Is that what you're looking for? Or what?
I'm not even saying going into that level of detail, just to make sure that they're actually, they've been performed, right? Because like if we're,
They've been completed, yeah.
they've been
absolutely.
completed and that they're all satisfactory. Right, I
Yes.
mean, because if we are looking at overall budgets and salaries is our number one expense that we have. I would just want to make sure that we're actually looking at, that they've met the performance reviews.
I would think that falls under county admin, and then we
Well,
maybe look
so
at
not
their two.
necessarily county admin, it would fall under the each elected office, because you guys would have your own, just like the sheriff's has their own performance, and then we submit them through HR, but,
The electeds are every 4 years.
no, I understand. I understand that, but what I'm trying to say is like, Mark and Quinn don't review they have nothing to do with the sheriff's office.
No, I
And
understand.
so,
Right.
like, the sheriff and the chief deputy review ours, sheriff reviews the chief deputies. Sheriff isn't an eval, like you said, he's elected for 4 years, so his eval's based off of his votes.
Yeah.
And so I don't know.
And my question more is just how that all plays together, right? I'm just looking more at the process of how performance reviews would come into either the budgeting process or under the auditing process.
And then in regards to I'm trying to figure out like how we would use that for the budget, because and I understand what you're trying to say is like, if there's the low evals and are they being done, why aren't we making the cuts on staff if they've got bad evals?
Got it.
I mean, but that again would be the own individual hiring offices that would determine that. And then if we're trying to do a reduction in force, we don't base that off of evals anyways. It's, as my understanding of the county handbook, it's based off seniority.
That is correct. Yes, we have a reduction in force policy, so that if reductions are being made based off of financial constraints, restructuring of departments, et cetera, then there is and again, it doesn't have to be followed. There is that condition of it may not always feasibly be followed. But it typically goes by part-time or seasonal employees, probationary year employees, and then seniority.
So, yeah, I don't know if this one would be the appropriate board to
Sure, I
discuss.
was just more asking, I was asking questions more.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be budget. It could be audit. I can see that. That
we're
connection.
Also probably discussing personnel evals, and there's people on this board that don't work for the county as a department head, so it's appropriate to discuss staff's evals or personnel files in public.
Perfect, thank you.
That's a good discussion. Thank you. Yeah.
I know, Brian, the only time I've been in on it was for the county admin, right? Like I've been on a couple years where we did their performance review as county commissioners, but that's the only.
That's the only thing we
I might
touched
Yes,
performance reviews.
yes,
Okay.
yes, yep.
I like the 4-year performance reviews. They're really effective.
And then.
They are, I agree.
One edit that I did include, it's updated in the public packet. It's in section 3, and under officers of the board. It's just a small suggestion that Treasurer Kaufman suggested with regards to the administrative duties of the secretary being delegated. And just opening up the possibility that delegation can happen via the either administration or clerk auditor's office. So for example, we have Jenny Beth Jones from my office taking on the administrative duties of that officer position. So that's just a little housekeeping order. And then, yeah, let's see, there's just some title changes. There was a section 2 in vacancies that was added specifically to address a short-term sort of emergency cleanup situation that we had to have with regards to board composition. And specifically to address the 2023 vacancy. So that's why that is proposed to be removed. The other thing that I wanted to bring up that Treasurer Kaufman raised is that this document is not actually the bylaws. It's the ordinance with the attached duties and functions.
Yes.
And so this duties and functions document, I understand is very, very similar. You know, it could be close to identical to the bylaws, but it's not exactly the bylaws. So this agenda action item is actually a misnomer. I do feel pretty confident that agreement on, you know, the general parameters of these red lines to the duties and functions will provide most of the guidance we would need to also revise the bylaws. Of course, pending review of everyone here and the attorney. But I guess I would just open up the floor to any other comments or suggestions or questions here. And there can be, if people need more time to review after we've had this discussion, there can be some suggestions made directly to me offline as well.
I've reviewed all of these. I don't have any problem with them, Dave.
Okay, thank you.
So this document is technically an ordinance, but it's serving as our bylaws because they're so similar.
Yeah, I think that might be a little bit more detailed. I think the bylaws might be a little more general is my assumption. We have 2018 bylaws and I didn't include them in here because I wasn't sure if we had a more updated version of bylaws that had been passed.
Yeah.
Either way, we'll have to revise and repeal and replace all of these documents as part of the process of updating the bylaws.
Should we then bring those forward at the next meeting, put them on the agenda?
Yes.
Then make sure that they correlate.
Exactly. Yep. Great, thank you all.
And then I guess maybe we should recommend that we get those on the website. Because currently, I think on the website, the only thing is this ordinance.
Right, so when
If there is another document, it should be related and on the website.
The bylaws are out there, grandcountyutah.net, buried from 2018. April
Okay,
17th.
so the 2018 document is.
Yeah.
Okay. And I suspect that there's a possibility that those are the most current, so.
Seems to me.
Chris, did you have something?
Yeah, I have a comment. I think the order to do this in would be to get the ordinance approved through the commission because they're going to have it on an agenda item in one of their meetings, and then address the bylaws after that because we shouldn't really be doing anything with the bylaws until we know what the commission is going to approve in the ordinance.
Okay.
Maybe
So perhaps I'll send this through attorney review and then, you know, we'll get there and whether that happens before the next meeting or not, perhaps there will be an update on that process and there will still be a chance to get that into the next commission meeting, potentially given the 5 Tuesdays in this month. And then there was one other thing I had just popped up in my head that I'm trying to remember or think about. Let's see, there was a question at the last meeting after I had left about the $100,000 allocated or appropriated for affordable housing. And that's in a expense category within the general fund called contributions to other agencies. And that's a category that we'll review at a later budget advisory board, but I wanted to just clarify that.
I saw your note on that.
And then I'm had conversations now with Administrator Tyner regarding monthly updates and the plan that I proposed to him, which seemed agreeable, which was that after we get our sales and tax revenues receipts towards the end of the month, usually it's between the 22nd and the 25th. We're going to work out a template, some sort of template presentation that includes an update on revenues, and perhaps some, sales and use tax and perhaps other types of revenues and expenses. But I thought I would work with administration to develop a template that's agreeable to everyone, and that would be, that's more in line with presenting to the commission, but it could also be presented as well with this board in a monthly type format along with when those revenues hit. And of course, I'll work in, Chantel will be leading that eventually, and we'll work together for the time being to develop that.
And then are you foreseeing as well to see a variance report on expenses with that?
Yeah, and that'll involve some, some projection and some of the things that we talked about with regards to the variability of spending. I guess I want to focus on, I think that will be good to develop. And we'll play around with developing that. I want to make sure, I think in the near term for what we want to present in the now through the remainder of this year at least.
Sure.
I guess I don't want to guarantee that mechanism will be developed in full.
I'm just wondering if we should make sure that we're keeping that in the view as well, so it's not that it ends just with the revenue, because I think that you need to see both sides when you're looking at it. And I don't know if that shouldn't be, sent out or made available to all the department heads as well. So maybe, presented at the commission, but then also sent to all the department heads as the year goes on.
Hmm.
And that's like itemized by department. I want to see revenue numbers monthly, whatever. So that's the idea.
Well, the variance, yeah.
And I just want to bring up too, we had personnel services as a presentation for the first meeting, and I just had an oversight and didn't actually include it in the agenda, and they will be included on the agenda for next Friday. That's the 19th, and I'm really close to having prepared the draft budget worksheets that we review. I have the ones that we'll be reviewing next Friday, the 19th. I will be sending those out today. And so we'll achieve that full week lead time for you all to review budgets that we're going to be reviewing next Friday. And just so everyone knows, as a way of trying to really solicit as much engagement throughout this process as possible with the commission, I do make sure to share the YouTube link and all of these documents with all commissioners after these meetings, just because I do want people to feel like they can be engaged throughout this whole process.
And it was great to have the documents ahead of time for some review.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Yeah,
that
And
for
Excel
sure.
files as well. That's great.
Yep, we're trying to get there. Thank you for
Yeah.
working with us here. And I think that's all we have here on the agenda. Let me just make sure. And
And the
then,
other thing I would mention regarding the talk or the discussion we've had here is back to the discussion we had earlier, and I don't remember if admin was in the room when we were having it, but taking the pressure off of the commissioners. I mean, if this projection idea is to let somebody know that their budget needs to change by X amount, and then I just don't want to come back and say, well, is the commission gonna remove that position? I think that that's an admin and a department head decision to get within their budget, and the last resort is the commission would say that we've got to do something here to reduce the budget. I don't think that we should leave that decision all the way to the commission. Well, are we going to remove a position or add a position? I think that needs to be started at a different discussion rather than up on the dais in a commission meeting. That's all I
I
was
think
thinking.
it's a good idea. It's had the sheriffs and all.
Mhm.
the departments
And
to be able to have a projection of what their budget's gonna look like, so we can have that conversation. I just approving the position and stuff, like if
Yeah.
our budget's more, I don't know. And Chris, you guys are the funding source, so we have to ask.
Sure, I understand that. I think that discussion needs to be vetted before it ever gets to us, rather than, up there is when we first hear about it and get it. There should be a lot of effort that goes into that and discussions around it rather than commissioners.
so the general idea that you're conveying is we'd like to know where we're at with the budget such that we could make a determination now for administration to give direction to departments, whether there might be some vacant positions that have to remain unfilled due to budget circumstances.
Sure.
And we
yeah.
want to determine that sooner than later.
Right,
Yeah.
and rather than it be determined up there, I mean, and I think it needs to be vetted out with HR and admin and the department. And then if it's gotta be voted on or something, it comes to the commission.
And it's allowing the department heads to make those decisions, right? And to figure out how they're gonna live within inside that budget.
Yeah.
And to do that, they need to have an idea of where that revenue is
And
at.
I run my own projections throughout the year anyways, based on.
Of course.
the budget, based on where I'm at. If I don't have a position filled, obviously I can track that, so that's how I do my budget at the end of the year, is I run projections throughout the year to see where I'm gonna be spending like my food budget and so on. Try to track that, so, I mean, if we had it overall, I mean, it just.
Just from an overall look, I mean, I can see this right now, is we basically, by pushing that one dispatch onto the commission, we've now made that political. And I don't think that's fair for that department, right? I think that having those conversations earlier and then presenting them, I mean, if it comes down and we're like, hey, we're gonna have to make a cut in this department, that should be left to.
Well, and I think with,
Department head
and I
rather
think with
than-
the sheriff, to speak for the sheriff
Yeah.
in regards to that, I don't think it was, whether it was intentionally made political, he was just simply stating that we didn't fill the position due to budget cuts throughout the year.
But we'd like
Position
to-
still exists. He was just saying unless the commission wants to cut the funding for the position altogether and then get rid of the position. Otherwise, that's all he was saying. And he was just saying to add it to the budget. Because the position still exists, and we're not filling it unless the money's cut altogether.
Okay, let's go with the test first and then Trish. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
Well, first off, I hope Commissioner McCurdy would be proud because I'm taking one out of his playbook. This is actually the best, this is in fact the best technique for not losing feeling in your hand.
You'd have to have your hand up all the time, Beth. Just throw it out.
So this is a really great
Let's not do
discussion and
that.
thank you so much for bringing up these points. This actually leads into something that I've discussed with Commission administration, with Gabe. I sent an email out about it, is that I think that providing in the structure that we would need from this group of folks is what flexibility can we have in between? We're at 98% and the only way that we can get below 95 is totally cutting a position. This doesn't apply for public safety, but for public employees, we can provide the option to let them drop below 40 hours. The benefit of that is that it would be able to help us get down to that 5% projected budget cut, maintains that position, maintains that is institutional knowledge, keeps that loyal employee on staff. And if the county is, or when we are in a better position, we can increase their hours back up. So that's a suggestion that I've, thrown out. I do have a few different options for my budget. One of them is including reduced hours within my department so that I can keep all of my staff while maintaining operating costs that we're going to need to ensure that we are serving the county to the best of our abilities.
So essentially just put that little.
Exactly. And again, we can really go into this more thoroughly. I'm happy to bump that proposal back up to the top of the inbox. I think that we can do it very strategically and look at getting some projections of what type of salary benefit savings we could look at in 2026 if we did pursue that option. That's a great question. So retirement contributions would go down and years of service, or excuse me, time of service would add, which is why in all cases possible, I would love for it to be opt-in. For anybody, especially those who are paid out of general fund. Maybe some employees can make that and want to make that compromise of having more time, say, with family and are willing to take that budget cut, whereas some people are not going to be in that financial position or they are close to their years of service and just need to get to that mark. And I want to support people in getting to that mark. So again, I'll bump that proposal back up. And if anybody else is interested, I'm happy to send that to you.
I guess this is a question for you, because maybe I'm confused about what you're trying to say, Bill. So are you trying to say that you would like those projections, let's say, to come from Gabe? They move through admin and tests, And then they're making those decisions, 'cause that's what I'm getting out of what you, so I guess I'm confused. Is that
Well, I
what
think
you're
the entire body needs to hear the projections. As a county, every employee should be aware that we're faced with some tough decisions.
Sure.
And those tough decisions to fit within a budget, and I'm not picking on the sheriff or the jail. They have decisions to make that budget work,
Yeah, I
and if an employee is one of the decisions to live within our means, then that starts there. Works its way through admin and HR before it ever gets up here and it's political. Well, you're just picking on this department or you're picking on that department.
And I think that's, okay.
I think that's protocol personally, and I'm just suggesting that.
For every
I guess,
department, know where,
Yeah.
what we're looking at projections wise, so we
Sure.
can all budget accordingly, like, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Obviously good at all.
Anything that gives you more autonomy in your department specifically, if we want
Yeah, I just-
to fire somebody or lay them off.
Well, like I said, I
Hire
can't
somewhere else.
just fire somebody because we're
yeah,
budget
kind of,
wise, like, it would have to be. We would have to follow Grant County handbook based on that.
Right.
And try and make cuts where we can in regards to like part-time or so on. But yeah, no, I think it's important that the information, I'm not opposed to it at all, like, I love projections, to see where.
Me too.
No, I do, that's why I run them on a quarterly basis throughout the year, I like to know where I'm at. So I don't think get beat up by you guys, so.
Okay, I hope to provide some information based on my early estimates and, with all the caveats and information that will be attached to that, such that we can have that idea of where we're at right now. All right, seeing any other questions or comments at the moment? All right, I'll adjourn this meeting. It's 11:15 a.m. Thank you all.
Thank you, appreciate it.
We didn't need to vote on future comments, did we? Did we
Well,
miss that?
okay.
No, we voted on the ones that were included in last week via the minutes, and then we'll vote to approve
Got it.
today's via next week's approval of minutes. It seems like it works that way.
Oh,
Bye, everybody.
see you, buddy.
Thanks, Chris.